Welcome to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host on this Thursday, July 21st, 2016. Alex Jones is going to be hosting from the Republican convention in Cleveland. It was quite an event last night with Ted Cruz showing his true colors. Let me read you some of what people were saying. Boehner says about Cruz, Lucifer is back. Haley Barber says, I sort of think it'll backfire on him. That's one of the more mild comments about what he did last night. New York delegation rages at Ted Cruz. Roger Stone says he is one dumb SOB. A Trump ally says he is a self-absorbed little man. Let me tell you what, nobody liked what he had to say last night except for Hillary Clinton. Because what Ted Cruz essentially said last night was, I'm with her. He not only didn't dance around the endorsement, but he essentially called for people to not vote for Donald Trump. He did exactly the opposite of what Mitch McConnell did. When Mitch McConnell spoke, the speech began with boos from the floor because people are not happy with what Mitch McConnell has done as leader of the Senate. He's betrayed them on Obamacare, on the open borders, and so forth and so on. But what he wisely did was he made a case for electing Donald Trump. So Mitch McConnell started out with everybody booing him. But when he ended up, everybody was cheering him. So you have Ted Cruz come on last night. He had a lot of Cruz supporters there. I think it was very wise for Donald Trump to allow him to speak rather than to play the kind of games that Mitt Romney did 4 years ago, having the Rules Committee rewrite the rules to make sure that Ron Paul was not going to be allowed to speak. I think it was very wise for Donald Trump to give him enough rope to hang himself, to show everybody what he is really about. And that's essentially what we saw last night. He came out to massive applause. At the beginning, when he walked on stage, there was a lot of Cruz delegates there. He had a full minute of applause. And then he walked off with boos. If they'd had any fruit, they would have been throwing it at him. They had to escort his wife off the stage. There was a person in one of the donor rooms that had to be restrained who wanted to physically attack him. He was not allowed into the donor room of the Adelsons, and this is a guy who had courted the Israeli lobby very heavily. One of the things I remembered about Ted Cruz, and of course, you know, in 4 years, he's looking to the future. He's fundraising off of this morning. He put out a fundraising letter talking about how great he was, how independent he was, and so forth. Look, in 4 years, he'll still be ineligible to run for president. He'll still be a naturalized citizen, not a natural-born citizen. And he'll still be a lying dumb SOB, as Roger Stone put it. He told everybody that one of his key issues was the Constitution, yet he doesn't care about the eligibility issues of the Constitution, and he doesn't care about the Supreme Court. If you go to his website and look at what he had to say about the Constitution, it was all about Supreme Court justices. Well, we have to understand that the next president is going to appoint between 1 and 4 Supreme Court justices based on their ages. We got 3 people who are older than Scalia. We've got a lot of people that are really getting old that will not really be able to avoid retirement, perhaps, and wait out another 4 years, certainly not another 8 years. Who's going to appoint those judges? Is it going to be Hillary or is it going to be Trump? It's not going to be Jill Stein. It's not going to be Gary Johnson, okay? If you're not voting for, if you're a Republican and he's telling you, well, Republicans, you don't necessarily have to vote for Donald Trump. Those Republicans are either going to waste their vote and they're going to help Hillary Clinton by voting for Gary Johnson because Gary Johnson's not going to win. Gary Johnson is in this so that he can get federal matching funds. He's just in it for the money. That's the strategy. We always rejected that strategy when I was in the Libertarian Party, but he threw out the principles of the Second Amendment. He threw out the principles of private property, religious liberty, and he did it so he could get money. So if you're voting for your conscience and not voting for Donald Trump, you're really voting for Hillary Clinton, and she echoed that. She put out a tweet saying, vote your conscience. When we come back, we're going to play you some of the clips, some of the reactions of people from last night. Stay with us. Alex Jones will be joining us from Cleveland. Today is the final day of the Republican convention in Cleveland. Alex Jones and crew are there. Alex Jones will be joining us on the show. Actually, he'll be hosting the rest of the show coming on in just a few minutes. And last night we had an amazing display of what one Trump ally called an exhibition of Ted Cruz being his self-absorbed little self here. He said, America now knows that Ted Cruz, what Washington has known about Ted Cruz for several years, that he is self-absorbed, narcissistic. It's all about Ted Cruz. That's the reason Cruz has no friends in the Senate, said Chris Collins, a Republican from New York. He said, so I think he's ended his political career, but in doing so, he disappointed his own political supporters who may not be enthusiastic about Mr. Trump, but were all about unity of the party and defeating Hillary. Why? Because, you know, if they understand principle, if they understand what Ted Cruz campaigned on, you go to his site, one of the first things he's talking about is Constitution, Constitution. Now, that doesn't apply to him. When he doesn't like the requirements for being a natural-born citizen, when he's just a naturalized citizen, he ignores that part of the Constitution. He doesn't talk about the unconstitutional war on drugs. And you know what? If you ignore things like that, if you treat the Constitution as a living document when it comes to the war on drugs, then the Constitution is going to be a living document when it comes to the definition of marriage. It's just that simple, Ted. Just that simple, conservatives. They're going to be able to do whatever they want, ignoring the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth, Fifth, Sixth Amendment. They don't care. They can take your property on the street just by not even accusing you of being guilty of anything in the war on drugs, but perhaps your property was somehow associated with something. When you allow that type of thing to happen, then they're going to come in, they're going to enforce Obamacare mandates on you. They're going to tell you that they can define marriage. And of course, he was right in the sense that a lot of this stuff is coming out of the Supreme Court. That's how they enable it. Who is going to be appointing the next 1 to 4 justices in the next 4 years? The issue is it's either going to be Donald Trump and the Republicans or it's going to be Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. Do you want to have another 4 Ruth Bader Ginsburgs on the Supreme Court? See, that's what Ted Cruz is willing to do for his own personal ambition. He sent out a fundraising letter today, and he was telling people, I have a vision for the future, 2020. No, he's been staring at himself in the mirror for so long that he is cross-eyed from the self-adoration. He is so nearsighted, he doesn't see what he's going to do to this country in 4 years, and he doesn't see that he doesn't have, and nobody else will have, a chance at Hillary Clinton after she's been president for 4 years. She's going to consolidate so much corruption in the government and the media, you're not going to get her out in 4 years. Absolutely delusional. Other people, John Boehner said, Lucifer is back. Haley Barbour says, I think it'll backfire on him. And he was booed off the stage. So I want to play for you what happened last night. Let's roll this first clip of Ted Cruz.
Stand and speak and vote your conscience. Vote for candidates up and down the ticket who you trust to defend our freedom and to be faithful to the Constitution.
Now, that's when people first realized that he was telling people to vote for her. Vote for her. Don't vote for Donald Trump. Vote your conscience. Well, you don't have that many choices anymore. You know, at one point in time, you had 17 choices. Now you've got 2. You really do. And so that was the point they realized that he was telling people he was with Hillary. That was when they started booing him. And then it got worse. Let's play this next clip.
The party, we will unite the country by standing together for shared values, by standing for liberty. God bless each and every one of you, and God bless the United States of America.
So they had to escort him and his wife. They had to take them off of the floor to protect them from the crowd. Absolutely amazing. And then he goes to the donor rooms. And one of the donors wanted to attack him. One of the other donors, Sheldon Adelson's donor room. And remember, he was kind of the co-winner of the Sheldon Adelson sweepstakes for money, along with Marco Rubio. Adelson was saying, well, I kind of like one and my wife likes the other. We haven't really made up our mind yet. They would not even let him in the room. Not even let him in the room. And this is what they had to say in the New York Times. It said, senior Adelson aide, Andy Abowd, confirmed to CNN that his boss had invited Cruz to visit him and his wife Miriam, but turned him away at the door after he stunned the audience at the arena by urging voters to vote their conscience in November. When he didn't endorse, he said they were stunned and disappointed. We could not allow Ted Cruz to use the Adelsons as a prop against Donald Trump. Now, think about that. You know, I remember when this all kicked off, and I remember Ted Cruz using some Middle Eastern Christians as a prop. Do you remember that meeting? I was on vacation at the time, and I was absolutely stunned at what he did. He went to a meeting of Middle Eastern Christians who are Arabs. They were being persecuted in their country by Muslims. He was there to talk to them. And instead, what he did was he deliberately provoked a couple of people by saying some things about Israel, and somebody said something about it. And then he really doubled down and started accusing them of being anti-Semitic. And then the booze really started. And he just basked in that, okay, just like he did last night. He was like, look at this. They hate me because I'm defending Israel. No, they hate you because you use them as props to suck up to Israel supporters, okay, to get the money from people like Sheldon Adelson. And I think even the Adelsons have seen through this. Now, he tried to use them as props against Donald Trump. Truly amazing to me. And you know, it's just the opposite of what you saw with Mitch McConnell, who came on. People were booing him, as I pointed out in the first segment of the show. When Mitch McConnell came on, they booed him because they don't like the policies that he's been pursuing. And yet what he did was he made a case for Donald Trump. He made a case for Republican unity. Why you need to have a Republican president appointing the Supreme Court justices, as Ted Cruz said. So he finished up his speech with applause, and it went exactly the opposite for Ted Cruz. Now, joining us now is Alex Jones, who is in Cleveland. He was at the convention last night, and he's going to be there tonight for the final events. Alex.
Thank you, David. Feel free to ride shotgun with me off and on throughout the broadcast. Just want to say the entire crew here on site, but also in Austin, and, of course, the listeners who are the backbone of the whole operation. We've really had some devastating victories here. Hillary for President is now an international meme. In fact, it's one of the few things actually scares me a little bit, because you talk about getting right in the bull's face and kicking it in the nose. We've been doing that with this witch, but she's a criminal and she's got to be opposed. We're fully committed. So I just thank God that we've been so effective. And I want to thank you and just the entire crew, because it's the people behind the scenes who are dedicated to the info war that also put themselves at risk, who make all this possible. In fact, they make my job easy, and they never ask for credit. But I just want you to know that we've just got some amazing people in the operation. We have seen a Greek tragedy play out in front of us. But if you really know the Greek tragedies, they're not tragedies like Ulysses when he finally gets back after being gone for decades and all these enemies have taken over his house. Because in the end, it's not a tragedy, because justice prevails. And America has been taken over by criminals. They think it's their country. They've tried to play us off against each other, dumb us down, make us poor so they can control us. And the truth is, they don't rule us because they're strong. They rule us because they're scum and because good people don't think like they do. Well, I'm here to tell you, I've studied the enemy, and so have our guest, and we are here educating people about how our enemy operates, and they're going to find out who's strong. And they're beginning to find out who's strong right now. In fact, they've actually always known who's strong. That's why they've done all this, to try to make us weak, try to teach us that we can't fight back. Every time we fight back, we get stronger, they get weaker. Now, Glenn Beck, folks, everybody knows I don't attack other talk show hosts who claim they're patriots. I don't. I'm not in competition with Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity. I'm not in competition with any of these people. So I kind of held my tongue with Glenn Beck the last decade, really the last 6-7 years, where he did stuff behind the scenes to my own operation. I even pled with him on air and through his people to stop it. But I told everybody that Glenn Beck is an absolute, total, and complete Benedict Arnold. And when I say Benedict Arnold, I mean he is the living embodiment of it, and so is Megyn Kelly. These people are horrible, hateful, treacherous people. And I am so sad to have to say Ted Cruz is one of them. And he pledged and said he always keeps his word to endorse the nominee, and he said he would do it if it was Donald Trump. Because it would have been so unpopular for him to not say that